Hello, and welcome to Live in Color. I'm your host, Jessie Perez. Live in Color is really all about learning to speak a new language. And we're going to learn some really cool things and have a whole lot of fun doing it. Just like learning to speak a new language, you have to practice. And like learning to speak color, you have to practice with that too. You know, this is actually a game show. Our guests have taken an assessment before the show, and it's our job to figure out their color spectrum. This will help us learn who they are. It'll be through the fascinating things that they tell us, their passions and their interests, that are going to give us tells to reveal their colors. And you get to play along. If you go to WeSpeakColor.com, you'll be able to learn who our guests are, what their topics are coming up. You'll be able to submit some questions. If your question gets selected and I get their colors right, you win a cool prize. I also want to thank our sponsor, Heavenly Water Salon, located right here in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you're looking for a new salon, I would suggest you go to our website and look them up. And now for my favorite part, I get to introduce our really cool guest. She's going to be talking to us today about language immersion and the cultures that kind of go along with that. So without further ado, I'd like to present and welcome to the patio, Miss Tiffany Leva. So great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So you, I understand, have had a lot of cultural experience over your life. And I know that there's a lot of audience members who kind of want to know, what is it like to not only see some of the cultures that we have in the United States, but what is it like to go somewhere else and actually be part of that culture? And so, Costa Rica, was it?
Yeah, so I studied Spanish here in high school, like a lot of people do, and really just developed a base as far as reading and writing in Spanish. But practicing, there wasn't really a lot of that happening. So when it came time to speak, like a lot of people who study language here, it was really difficult. So I decided to go down to Costa Rica. They have a lot of different language schools to choose from. But I picked a school, went down there, and really just immersed myself in the language and in the culture. Went to school 6 hours a day, just studying Spanish. And then after that, it was 4-hour days for a couple of months. But really, I think that's the key when you're trying to learn a language, is just immersing yourself into it.
That's neat. And so what motivated you to pick Costa Rica?
I had a boyfriend at the time who was from Costa Rica.
It all comes out now.
And he also became my husband later.
Even better.
Yes. And I had been to Costa Rica 3 or 4 times on mission trips with my church. And so it was a place where, at that point in my life, my parents felt comfortable with it. And I really felt like it was where God was directing me to go.
Great. Now, the whole going to school 6 hours a day, did you really get to experience everything? Were you going to school with people from the U.S. or were they were people from there? How did that work?
It was really, we had a really small class of about 10 people, and they were from all over the U.S. The teachers there were from Costa Rica, so you're not only learning the language from a non-native speaker, you're learning from a native speaker. So you get that benefit of working on your accent, really. You get the benefit of learning about their sayings that they have and the different phrases that you never really experience here.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you think that when you talk about accent, when you hear Spanish spoken here, I mean, to a lot of us, it just sounds like Spanish. You figure everybody's from Mexico. Mm-hmm. Can you hear differences in their languages?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
It's just like here in the States, someone from the South sounds a lot different from someone who maybe is from way up north. Like, the accents are just so different. The way that, there's some countries, they cut the R off of the end of their words and they don't even pronounce it. So just the way that they say the words and the way even that they write out the language is different sometimes.
Yeah, I'm from Maine, and so we drop our R's. So we drive cars, but then we add them to words that end in A. So we eat bananas.
Pretty much the same thing for the different countries.
Cool, that's neat. So can you give us a word that you learned while you were there that you think might be interesting?
Oh, goodness. There's so many, and you have to be careful because each country has their own sayings, And a word like in Costa Rica that means pretty lady could mean something not so nice in Mexico. And so I don't really want to say one because I'm afraid if somebody from one of those countries hears it, they might be like, what did she just say?
I tried practicing my Spanish. I thought I was saying, let's go ride in the car. They told me I told them that I was going to go ride a pig.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, I was a little embarrassed after that. So, well, that's neat. So, when you're over there, you said you were there for 2 months?
4 months
4
total.
months, okay. And so, what were some of the neat cultural experiences you had while you were there?
I think really it's just in Costa Rica specifically, the days felt so much longer in a good way. The culture was so much more relaxed. Like here, it's all about, go from point A to point B to point C and get it done by 5 o'clock, and that's it, and then you can clock out. But down there, it's just, you go to school or you go to work, and not that you're late everywhere necessarily, although that is pretty common. There's not that pressure of getting everything done within a certain amount of time. And so it was really nice to just go. I went to school, I studied hard, I practiced, I was part of a church there, and so I was living life, and I had deadlines for certain things, but there wasn't just this immense pressure of having to get it done. And I think that was the best part of being there.
Did you use a lot of technology with your school, or was that kind of not a part of it?
Well, this was a few years ago, where I didn't have a cell phone. I don't think there was even Facebook. It was when you would instant message people,
Oh, yeah, right.
And so as far as school, it was paper, books, and practicing, watching VHSs of movies in Spanish, stuff like that. So technology wasn't really a part of it.
Okay. Well, how do you think that your language experience and your culture experience has helped you now?
Definitely, the first thing would be with church. My husband and I are pastors at a Spanish-speaking church, and so that allows me to not have to have a translator right beside me all the time. If someone doesn't speak English, I can go to them, or if I need to teach or preach, then I can do that. Or even, praying with somebody in their own language is huge. And so definitely within the ministry that God has called me to, it is put to use almost daily. I'm able to send somebody a text message instead of having to ask my husband, who's from Costa Rica, hey, how do I need to write this so that they know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so definitely just within my everyday life with ministry. And it's even nice if I go somewhere and I notice that somebody's having trouble communicating, maybe they don't speak English that well, then I can just step in and be like, hey, I speak Spanish. What is it that you need here?
Yeah. And so had you been out of the country before you went to Costa Rica? Was that your first time?
No. Whenever I was 16 was whenever I took my first mission trip with my church, and I went to Chile.
Oh,
and
okay.
That was my first experience out of the country. It was my first time on an airplane. I mean, it was a huge moment.
That's a
for
big
me.
deal.
Yeah, and it was my first experience really in another culture. And down there, the cool thing was they actually took a 2-hour break in the afternoon to take their siesta.
Oh.
So even if you were working, school, whatever, you had that siesta time. And so that was, I wanted to bring that home. It didn't work, though.
Do all the Spanish countries do siesta?
No, not all of them.
Really? I think we have this idea that if you speak Spanish, you're in a country that everybody goes to bed in the middle of the day.
Yeah. No, Chile definitely did. And Costa Rica, it was more laid back, like I said, and they tried to take that time in the afternoon, but you didn't actually stop working and leave work and go home for 2 hours like it was there. In Chile, like everything shut down. Restaurants, whatever it was, everything shut down for 2 hours.
Well, with all this traveling, would you consider yourself adventurous?
No.
No.
I am not a risk taker. Not at all.
Were you a little bit worried then, as you were preparing for this? I mean, were you on your own when you went to Costa Rica pretty much, right?
Well, I talked to my best friend into going with me.
Oh, I see. You really aren't a risk taker. You're like, put the risk on her.
Yes. You're with me, we'll be good,
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a risk taker. But I would say to a certain point, whenever I know that God is directing my steps, it is easy to take whatever risk because I know that it's the right step to take. Now, if it's a risk like going bungee jumping or even, going hiking up the tall trail, that's probably not going to be this right here. No.
Right. Now, tell me about your family. You have children?
Yes, I have 3 beautiful little girls, 7 months, 3 years, and 6 years old.
Oh, wow. I'm
yes.
sure they keep you very busy.
Too busy, yes. And not enough sleep. Definitely not.
Well, that's great. You're really engaged with their learning and everything? And that's what I understand?
Yes. I homeschool, and we just started to be a part of a homeschool co-op in my area, and I'm able to teach Spanish to
That's
some
great.
other homeschool families. And so it's been going really good. Really good.
Wonderful.
And it's helping with my girls with actually practicing Spanish.
Yeah.
I think a lot of couples who have, one Hispanic and one person from here, a lot of time you tend to just go to English and you speak English at home, and so your kids are hearing English everywhere and they grow up not really speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying really hard to make it to where they have that ability to be bilingual, not just because it'll be a benefit for them in the future, but because that's part of who they are.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Identity is something that we really, I think, we need to understand who we are, right?
Yes.
And understanding who we are is going to give us so much more confidence.
Exactly.
And just give us our place. Like, we will feel like we really belong. And I know that there's all kinds of reasons why people struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
But, being born into a family where, one parent is from one background, another is from another, they need to understand that they really are both.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. That's beautiful.
Exactly. That's exactly it right there.
It's neat because as we're talking about fitting in colors and through the assessment that you took earlier, but we're really also talking about fitting in culture.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of neat that when we understand ourselves through colors, it doesn't matter what culture we come from, it's applicable.
Exactly.
So somebody who might be a blue or a gold or a green or an orange from Costa Rica would be the same basic makeup as a same color from China or from the US or from anywhere else.
Exactly.
And so what it kind of is boiling down to is that when we remove all of the outward appearance of where we come from, what our country is, what our language is, it really gets down to the fact that we are designed a certain way as human beings.
Exactly.
And that we really all can come to an understanding that we are the same but different. We're made unique, but within a framework of one picture.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
That's exactly it right there. And that's why, it's so important. I'm so glad that you had me here today, just for people to be open to stepping outside of their comfort zone. Like you said, if you boil it all down, we're all the same. We're all humans, and we have certain temperaments that we have been created to have.
Yeah.
And so it's so important that we step out of our comfort zones and just see, just because you look different than I look, or you speak a different language than I speak, that doesn't mean that we can't coexist.
And not just coexist. One of the things I think is really cool with the colors is it teaches us we're all like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And when we come together, we're not supposed to just coexist.
Yeah.
We're supposed to fit together.
Yes.
And when we fit together, my area of strength may be exactly what you need in your area of weakness, and your area of strength may be exactly what somebody else needs in their area of weakness. And, with your language, for example, you were talking about, when you're out and about, you might be able to help out and be able to help with that particular language.
Yes.
Well, if I can speak blue and I'm speaking to somebody, why can't I kind of adapt that and speak blue to somebody who needs it?
Yes, that's exactly it right there.
Yeah, that is so awesome. So, we do have a clip from your cousin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I believe she's down in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And so she's experiencing some kind of cultural immersion right now.
Yeah, she's been trying to learn Spanish for a while.
It's a little bit of a struggle. She's from the South, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's from the deep South.
Yeah.
So if we can cut to that clip, that would be
Well, hey, y'all. I'm Maria Joe, and I love Espanol. That means I love Spanish. And it's not just the language. It's la cultura. That means the culture. And something that the Espanol folks like to do is celebrar. That means celebrate. And when they celebrate, there's always a lot of really good comida rica. That means great food. Well, delicious food. And down here in Costa Rica, one of the things I love to eat is gallo pinto. That's black beans and rice. And they eat it for breakfast. All you got to do is put some huevos on the side, that's eggs, and a good old tortilla and a cup of cafe. That's the best coffee you ever did taste. And you got the best breakfast around. Now, wherever you may be today, you go find you some good Spanish food. Comida, remember? Okay? Great to see you today, and adios, y'all.
Your cousin is
Yes.
pretty funny.
She's awesome, and she tries so hard to speak Spanish, man. I love so much that God gave me the opportunity to learn Spanish and that I'm able to use it at a church here. And not just for people who speak Spanish. You know, we try to have services where we have a translator available. If somebody doesn't speak Spanish, then they can put on the headphones and they can listen in English and be able to saturate themselves within that community, you know, and to really learn what it is to be a part of a...
So you have earbuds that translate into English
Yes.
for the Spanish services.
Yeah, that way people can listen in and they can feel like they're a part of it instead of just feeling like they're an outsider coming in and, you know, I don't know what's going on here.
Well, that would be a really neat way to kind of get that immersion experience without having to travel all the way to Costa Rica.
It is, and there's people from all different countries there, and so you really get to experience different cultures.
That's really cool.
And so if anybody wants more information, centrovictoria.us.
Great. Okay, that was centrovictoria.us.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, great. Well, I think it's about time for our game show.
All right.
All right. Well, I mean, we've talked about some really cool things. I've gotten to know you a little bit. One of the things that kind of stood out to me was you were very emphatic about you are not a risk taker. So I'd have to say that because of the different colors, and there are some colors that are definitely more risk taker than others, I'm going to have to rule out your orange. So oranges are very much the risk taker. They're the ones that want to kind of see the adventure, be in it. They like to jump first, think about it later, and all that stuff. And that doesn't sound like you. No. I'm going to put that one over here. You know, you definitely seem to enjoy that experience of being down in Costa Rica, and it was really about the connectedness for you, and you have kind of brought that up in several different ways throughout. And blues are very much about being connected. They're very much about the how do we fit together as a family? How do we kind of understand each other in more of a cohesive unit?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to keep your blue as one of your high colors. So now I have two other colors left. I have a gold and I have a green. And so I'm saying that the green being more logical, more based on, you know, if it makes sense, let's do it. Kind of big picture thinker, doesn't like to kind of get into details. But as we were talking about you teaching particularly, a lot of teachers tend to be on the gold side rather than the green. Not that there aren't green teachers, of course. But the gold is kind of has a lot of structure and order and is able to put together lesson plans and things like that. And I would say that you seem to enjoy the teaching.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of leaning towards this over this. So I'm going to put this over here. So that would just make me say which one is greater, right? So our colors, we're all a color spectrum. One is going to be our brightest. I am going to, it's a tough one here. I'm going to just, based on how the kind of flow of conversation went, I'm going to put your gold first, followed by your connected blue. Your orange is going last, by the way. Sometimes it's easier to rule one out than it is to guess it. And that leaves my green, which I'm unsure about, as second to last. So, are you ready to reveal your colors?
Yes. Let's see here.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Oh, no! Oh, no! I didn't quite get it, but I was close. I was close.
Yes.
So,
That way.
sorry about that. So I was so close to putting her blue first because that connectedness was really coming through, but the teacher thing, she just had so many smiles when she was talking about that. But a lot of teachers are actually blue gold or gold blue, so that doesn't really surprise me that much. Yeah. And then your orange. Okay, your orange is actually, so I'm did not get her right. But you know, the neat thing about speaking color, it's not always about getting it totally right. It's about getting enough tells to lean towards what their colors are, so that you can understand them enough to a level to where maybe you don't need to understand exactly how they think. But blues, if I'm going to walk in and meet with a blue, I'm going to make sure I say good morning. And so if I know that she's in the blue range, I'm going to make sure that I'm using those terms and those things that would be common for a blue to really feel most comfortable. Just like getting the language wrong. I didn't ride in a car, I rode on a pig. But you can make up for it along the way.
Yeah.
You know, one of the best ways to learn how to speak color is really just taking a workshop, kind of getting that download all at once in a nice short 3-hour session, and it's a whole lot of fun. You can find out more about the workshops on our website at wespeakcolor.com. And another way that you can kind of get introduced to speaking color and start to really feel out and understand your colors is through my book, Color by Design. And this kind of goes into that introductory piece. It gets you some great scenarios to kind of make it real to you. And it goes into some depth, too, about what does it mean when you are working with somebody of this color, or when I am primarily this color, what are some areas that maybe I might act in that may not be perceived the way I intended. So it's going to be helpful not only in your professional life, but also in your personal life to kind of see how you are actually fitting in with the people around you. Because sometimes how we intended is not always how it's perceived, right? And so you can get more information about the book on wespeakcolor.com as well. And, you know, it's been so great getting to know you and taking this time. And I actually have a little gift for you.
Yay, thank you.
So thank you so much for that. And so as you're getting to know your colors more, as you're watching this show, and you're picking up more and more about what each color means, or you've read the book and you kind of have that idea. After all, we are built for community. We're made for community and relationship.
Yes.
And so as we enter in those relationships, that's a place that's really going to bring us total satisfaction. You know, it's easy to say, I can do it myself, you know? So, and you know, when we're looking at the different color spectrum, it is important to remember that we are all a spectrum. But, you know, kind of getting to know my colors has really opened me up to understanding who I am, what I'm good at, and then kind of guide my talents down the path of where I'm good. And then instead of trying to overcome my weaknesses and force them to work, I can actually partner with somebody who's already good in those areas.
Yes.
And they will kind of help round me out a little bit and help teach me how to be better instead of me trying to overcome my weaknesses by myself.
Yes.
Just by watching them do what they're natural at. Which is really cool, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like being immersed in somebody else's color by partnering with them and letting them teach you by watching.
Yes.
Well, as you get to know your colors and you get to know the people around you and their colors, remember to let your color shine. And together, we are more.